that your book challenges conventional interpretations. That is to say, the focus on smokestack industries, the focus on manufacturing. I've seen that if we are to look at it from the 1950s, at the point that many African countries received independence, up until the 1990s, the focus was on smokestacks. The focus was on primary production for manufacturing. The manufacturing that did not in itself produce the results that were intended or the results that could propel economic growth in the majority of our countries. And your book now comes to challenge these conventional interpretations. What are some of those limitations that inhibited the growth that is focused on smokestacks?
Well, I think one thing we see is that manufacturing as a share of GDP has fallen regardless of per capita income over decades. We have a wonderful graph in the book that you may have seen in the opening chapter, which shows that across all of the countries, irrespective of per capita income, manufacturing as a share of GDP was pretty high. But each decade, going back to the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, that share of manufacturing tends to fall across all countries. Why is that? Well, part of it is the servicification of manufacturing itself. That in fact, firms that before tried to keep advertising and engineering service, architectural services, engineering services inside the firm now are outsourcing that information. And so we have springing up, architectural firms, engineering firms, energy firms. All of this is, and they serve manufacturing much as does the traditional agriculture in the past. So thinking about the problem of how to promote your development, industry, non-industry, is kind of a message of this book. Maybe another way of thinking about it is we think about industrial policy. It's not so important to raise tariffs and try to create an auto industry immediately. What's more important is making sure that the industries you do establish are internationally competitive, or maybe you hive off a part of the global value chain that's incipiently being organized, because that turns out to be a much more important driver of growth in a world of global value chains than does the old style import substitution behind high tariff walls. In fact, I think if you look back at the experience of Africa, the high tariffs of the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s did not produce rapid growth. Rather, they led to and this, by the way, was not only true of Africa, it was also true of Latin America, did not produce massive increases in productivity or rapid growth. Rather, it was kind of misdirected resources into areas that were not going to be internationally competitive. Mm-hmm. So scrolling forward to the 2000s now, I think countries are now focusing much more on trying to establish internationally competitive activities. And here, Africa has a tremendous advantage because they have low-income labor that's available. They're investing in learning much more. They have access to global technology via the internet. So there's some real opportunities out here for Africa to move forward.